Começamos mais um Podbe e se você não está inscrito nesse canal, já vai lá, se inscreve. Estamos em todas as mídias sociais, TikTok, Instagram, que mais? YouTube, claro, né? Oi. Bom, meu nome é João Augusto, se você não me conhece, eu sou o entrevistador aqui desse podcast, ok? Hoje o Podbe vai fazer uma entrevista em inglês, então se você não sabe, né, tipo, eu quero entender que não está colando, você vai ali no settings, né, no configurações, troca ali o idioma, vai oferecer idioma para transição para o português, né, a tradução. Lógico que a tradução não é aquela uau coisa, mas assim, dá para entender, ok? So, my name is João Augusto. If you know me, if you don't know me, I have a podcast they call Podbe. So the Podbe, we show many kinds of interviews, and today my special guest is here from Australia. He works in the hospitality industry more than 20 years. It's a lot of, it's like, well, look, I've been for 16 years in hospitality, so it's a lot. We know many things, but of course, people have different stories, and here in Australia, we are here in Perth, by the way, he has a business called Authentic Wine Brands. So he's gonna tell us about this, how they become, why did he create this, what the experience, what's the difference, what's the marketing plan for this. So you're gonna have a light chat of this. And please subscribe to the channel. We have episodes every week, different kind of episodes. So you talk about spirituality, we talk about health, we talk about mental health, we talk about many things. And if you haven't know, Podbe has a website, so you can hire us for a coverage in your party event, anything, just let us know, okay? I will leave the link here for the QR code for you going for the website. Also, I'll leave the Authentic Wine Brands and the QR code here in the screen, so you can go and check anytime and see all the services my guest provides, okay? So, as I said to you, my guest is here from Australia. He lives in Perth. He works in hospitality for more than 20 years, so we have a lot of knowledge. And today, as you see, we are outside. We are here in his home, which is, I'm not saying the name because you knocked the door, but it's a beautiful place. One of the postcodes of Perth. So here literally in Elizabeth Key, yeah, which is really close to the city, you know. So my guest is Mark Leake. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you for the introduction.
Of course, I take a much an introduction because it's different when you do introduction in my language, it's in Portuguese. The accentuation, everything is different, and the accentuation in English is totally different. You know, it's not my first language as well.
Even though I dated a Brazilian, I didn't learn Portuguese.
Yes, no, Portuguese is a beautiful language. Believe me, you guys should, you know, go and jump it in. Lots of my people here in Australia, mainly in Perth, because Perth. Because after pandemic, Perth started booming because it started to be like one of the best cities to live. During the pandemic, it was like a whoa show in Perth, because before Perth, people saw Perth from UK. I said no, not Perth from UK, Perth from Australia. And after that, people start to it's a good city. Yeah, you have beaches, you have this at the coast, and then start to like show up in the the map.
Right, I think as you said, Perth was a little hidden secret. We're the most isolated city in the world.
Yes.
So that was great for us, well, good and bad during COVID pandemic, because yes, our borders were closed for 3 years. So we had to promote ourselves. We had to find, and people I think in WA discovered parts of WA that they didn't know about or they'd forgotten about as well.
Yes.
So it was, because we could only travel within the state. So we started talking about our own state a lot more, because the bad thing about a lot of Perth people is when we go on holidays, we go to Melbourne or Sydney, or we go to Europe, and everything else. So we don't holiday and we don't promote the beautiful city that we do live in, and we do. And the secret is about just getting to know what's going on in your city, because trust me, there's lots of events and lots of things going on.
I've been 6 years in Australia, 6 years in Perth. I've been in other cities as well, but Perth, there is so much to dig in. Because people don't know about Perth yet, and even people from here, they haven't been like, for example, to Esperance. They haven't been to Carigini. I was telling one of my ex-employers, and she said, you go to the trip? Yes, I go to the Carigini, I go to the what's the name?
Gorgeous. And
There's I forgot the name. No, Carigini. Then you go to no Esperance in the down south.
Carnarvon and
what's the name? Do you know? It's a really nice place.
Yes, it's where
it's like I did all the coast. Jesus Christ, how come? Anyway, I did all the coast in the north, and I go to literally stop here in Perth again, and my motor van.
Yeah, cool.
Which is, man, this is one of the best places you can go, because if you join, like you put 5-6 people around, and you can figure out things. It's not too expensive. You'll be like 10 days. You'll be like $400, guys. It's nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a website that if you've got a lot of people from overseas as well, if you've got if you can be flexible with the shoulder dates and things, it's called iMover.com, and it's a relocation of all the camper vans, and you can hire them out for $1 a day.
Really?
Yes.
$1 a day?
You go one direction, so it could be like if somebody's hired it from Perth to Broome, and they need to get it from Broome back down to Perth.
Yeah.
You hire it you've got to get it back in a certain amount of days, and it's $1 a day, and you just pay the insurance. So and they do it all around Australia.
Wow.
So you can do it from Melbourne, Sydney to Hobart. So as long as you get it back in the time frame, and they're up to the 6-berth camper vans. I've been looking at doing little trips myself.
Yeah, no, but good. But the one thing you say is amazing, but I wouldn't recommend to go for yourself, because everything's can. Jesus, everything can happen, because we are in Carigini, and suddenly there was some jingles around. They look like how can I say, domestic dog, but they are not. And my people said,
my baby.
yeah, there's like, no. There's like, we're a little bit scary, but it's like kind of, you don't have like, we have like poison snakes, insects in Brazil, but we're allowed there to have a barbecue, is everything fine, play guitar, and everybody's happy. But suddenly, it was literally a spider in my feet. I didn't see it. She just like, cross. So it was like, oh my gosh. So no, it's not, and it's not really safe to go along in the north, because if something happened there, you're in trouble, man.
Because no phone reception.
No, 50k is the closest to hospital around. So
50, probably like 250.
So where you are, it was 50k. But anyway, Mark. So you're born in Perth, or
No, I was actually born in the UK.
Are you born in UK?
Yeah, so I was born in
I said he was from Australia, but he's not from Australia, he's from England.
Yeah, so no, I was born in the UK. I was born in a place called Solihull, just outside of Birmingham, and I did primary school over there. My parents divorced when I was young, so I was about 6 or 7, and so my mum remarried, and we moved over here in '91 with my mum and my stepdad and my younger brother from their marriage. And so I did primary school in the UK, and then did my high school here in Perth, and university at Fremantle. And you probably have to excuse those bells.
Guys, you're external, that's fine, just ignore that.
It's the bell tower is just there.
So, that's fine, that's really fine.
Okay, but I thought it was you wrapping me up.
Yeah.
But so I did university down in Fremantle, and then I did exchange program to Notre Dame in America as well, a semester over there, and then came back, and my first job was actually out in Singapore. And I was actually a primary school teacher and taught at an international school in Singapore. And then when I finished there, I went back to the UK just for, it was supposed to be a little holiday for a month, and ended up that
I'm just quick doing, you can say, I just finished it because
is it?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, okay. Beautiful.
So I finished up in Singapore, and I went back to the UK initially just for a bit of a holiday. But from my dad was married before he married my mum, so I've got an older brother and sister as well from his marriage. And I found out my sister had MS, and so decided that I'd stay a little bit longer. And the plan was to have a year there, because obviously I had the passport. And I thought, well, I don't want to teach over here, because I don't want to go to get a relief teaching job, because you'd be sent to not so nice schools, and I didn't want that. And I thought, well, I did when I was at uni. I was always a waiter and worked in hospitality. I'll just get a part-time job as a waiter in a restaurant, and use my savings and just sort of living with my family. So that's that. But I went for a job interview for this part-time little job, and the lady who I was going to the interview actually owned 9 restaurants in Birmingham, and she actually said to me, she offered me the job as the assistant manager of the Fat Cat Bistro in Solihull, and I was like, oh, okay, great. I guess I'm working full time, and I guess I am staying a bit longer. So that was where I sort of got my first proper job as a manager in hospitality, because of working as a waiter.
This is 20 years ago.
This would have been 1999.
Wow.
24 years ago.
24, guys, much more than 20 years. So I'm being 16, I think it's too much, but the 24, you always love hospitality.
Yeah, I think my auntie and uncle used to own pubs in England, so we grew up, visiting them, and when my parents were divorced, Mum got a part-time job on the weekends working with them, and so we're always in that sort of like pub scene type of thing. So I think once hospitality gets into your blood, it becomes part of you, and it doesn't matter if you have a career change in a way, but you always end up in another part of hospitality.
Yeah.
So, I've gone from being a restaurant manager to a restaurant owner to then working in the wine industry to, being as a sales rep, and then sort of working into like brand ambassador and things like that, and now in my own company. But I'm still selling wine to restaurants and bars and working in hospitality, doing events in hospitality. So you can't get out of it.
Yeah,
I think.
So, do you prefer to work, like I always prefer to work in a private restaurants, or under the hospitality, you mean like a hotels?
So when I worked, my passion has always been the restaurant floor. So I always felt trapped behind a bar, because even though people think I'm a bit of an extrovert, I'm probably more of an introvert extrovert. So it's small talk is really hard, usually. So, and I find if you're behind a bar, you've got nowhere to run. So you always get stuck talking, or you have to make that small talk unless you're really busy and you just don't have time.
Yeah.
So that was always like where I hated to go, because I was always a bit shy. So I prefer the restaurant floor, because you can sort of go in and go out, and you can be quiet and inintrusive as possible if people don't want that, and the service is just slick, or you can be as jovial and as you just read the people you're talking to and give them their experience that they're wanting. So and that's what I liked, and then you have your own little conversations and things. It's like that's that. Yeah, so I was always the restaurant floor, and I always worked in sort of privately owned restaurants. I never worked in like sort of franchises or things. It was just it was more privately owned restaurants or small individual restaurants.
Yeah, I think it's the small individual restaurants as well. You become like a family member of the restaurant, so you look after the restaurant as yours.
Yeah,
and then you understand more. Like when people doing a meeting, you get there and you say, "Oh, I know this, I know that, I know, I feel." You get more, I think, together in the company's goals.
Yeah, and also you get to know your regulars, and you get to know that when they come in, that they like that particular table, or they like their coffee in that particular way, or they like their drink like served like that, or if they are coming in for a meeting, they've got their own order of service or something where they'll have order some things, and then they might do a meeting, and then they'll order lunch afterwards or whatever. But so you get to know that because they're regulars. But if you worked in a franchise, you can't do things like that because you have to follow
that thing. Yeah, I don't like franchise, honestly. I think franchisings, it's kind of you follow the trend because it's a trend. They open many things because a trend is getting good. But if you are, for example, in Italy, you can open a franchise of McDonald's beside of the restaurant that is close to like a famous pasta, the famous this, you open a McDonald's there. So it's kind of a franchise is a little bit crazy for me. But anyway, so you've been 24 years and literally in hospitality. Do you reckon, like, because you live in Perth. Perth is one of the places that you have like the hugest hospitality in Australia. People think no, like because the big cities you have, but I see, as I experience, Perth has one of the biggest like hospitality industry here, because I tell you that I see many foreigners, and the main thing they do is hospitality. So this means a lot, because not just because of the job, just because it's like many people coming up. So do you tell us like the Perth, it has so much to grow yet in hospitality?
Well, it does, and so it is growing a lot in hospitality. There's a lot of new restaurants opening up right now. Fremantle is becoming huge. Perth, there's lots of sort of areas that, popping back up. Where I think having the borders closed and coming out of the other side of the pandemic, we've got restaurants had to, or venues had to reinvent themselves or rethink outside, like change their direction or their style or whatever. Or people who, like me with Authentic Wines, if you seize that moment and maybe did something that was in the back of your mind, or you're boiling away at an idea or a concept, and you had the time to actually then put it into fruition and do it. So on the flip side of that, the opportunities in Perth now, because we've had the borders closed for 3 years, I do a lot of work with hospitality group training, and they train all the apprentices in the hospitality industry in WA. And Ian, who's the GM, was saying that we've got a shortage of apprentices coming through because it's not trendy, or it isn't trendy, type of thing. So it's hard work. But then we also haven't had the people from interstate and the overseas students as well. So there is a shortage of people in that area. So there is room there for careers as well.
Yeah. So do you reckon for example, the language is a big barrier for the students in the hospitality to communicate? Or do you think, because you'll be working around many years, do you think it's a good thing, like you have international students, international people that come in and join the hospitality field?
Totally.
here?
Yeah, I think because growing up in Perth and working in the restaurant scene, and having worked over in the UK and London and Birmingham and bigger restaurants over there, there's serious people in Perth, and it's getting much better. There's some really iconic people, like Fonnie at Mayfair Lane, who's teaching the WESAT courses, and she's studying for her Masters of Wine, and the level of service and the level of things that have really sort of coming up. But a lot of people in Perth, if you said to somebody who worked in hospitality 10, 15 years ago, it was like, you're just a waiter, you just work in hospitality, and it was just it wasn't a career. But if you go in Europe, if you work in a restaurant, or if you work in hospitality, it's a career. And
in my country, we have to do uni.
Yeah.
I did uni for 4 years, and then I did post-graduation administration, hospitality in administration, something like that. So anyway, but I did, and you have to have uni. You have to speak language, because we speak Portuguese. You have to speak in English, you have to speak Spanish. You have to speak more language to get a position.
And I think having those international people or workers, it brings another dynamic to the restaurant, and it's some fun for your regular customers as well, because they get to hear their story as well. Because if they're coming in 2 or 3 times a week as well, they get to know the staff that they're coming into. But you've got the language of service. The standard of international standards are the same no matter if you're in Perth, or if you're in London, or if you're in Paris or New York. If you serve, but the way you serve, the way you position food, the way you pour wine, everybody should be doing it the same way. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you come over, yes, your language maybe coming over here and learning to speak English at some of the schools here, but you can get jobs in hospitality because you know good service.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Do you have a favorite language to listen and the ground?
I think I like Italian and I like French. So I mean, when in primary school in the UK, we actually did English, and then we did French, Italian, and German. And then whichever one you were more successful at, you actually went through that stream. So I started to learn French, and when we moved over here, teach a second language at schools in Australia tends to be Italian or Mandarin. So a lot of the schools don't actually teach French. And when I first came here, I went to a state school for probably about 5 or 6 weeks, but really didn't like it. It wasn't the proper culture for me. We moved over, and I went to the Chisholm, where I went to Chisholm College, and they did speak French, or to teach French, and I did the first semester speaking French, or learning French, but my French was more advanced from where they were in that classroom.
Ooh,
and so,
ooh la la.
not now. I then dropped it for a semester to take up something else because I thought, being big-headed, I know this, and then came back and then they'd sort of jumped leaps about, and then so I started doing a night school at Alliance Française to do some French there, and then I was just like, I'm too hard, and then when am I going to learn French? When am I going to use French? And so I gave up on it. I don't have regrets, but it's probably it probably would be a regret. But yeah, but when I go over to France or to Paris,
You feel bad.
I feel bad, but
you remember.
I remember things. So like I can just sit in a restaurant, and if I've been there a few days, I can hear bits and pieces. You can sort of gather.
Some according to some studies, they saying our brain, they not delete all the knowledge. No. They just put
file it away.
File away, freeze. So it's kind of like 2 weeks. It's like I studied French for a while as well, and because I was trying to move to Canada. I went to Montreal, and I love Montreal, so I studied French for 3.5 years. So when someone is speaking with me, I totally understand. Sometimes I can't say things, but I get it what you say. But it's good. Memory comes up, after if I see a movie, it feels like after finish the movie, like all my knowledge is coming back. So don't worry.
Oh no, and it's interesting. Like my grandma is 92, and still alive.
That's great.
She's got Alzheimer's, and she's coming through the tail end, not the tail end, but she's getting worse. But it's been an amazing journey. Hard one, really hard one, especially for my mum and myself, just because we're both the sort of EPA and EPGs, power attorney, power guardianship, so we have to we look after all of her business matters, but the memory. So we FaceTime. We have a roster of FaceTime. So if we're not visiting the nursing home because she has to live in a locked facility now, we FaceTime, and some of because Grandma. Sometimes she's there and she's with us, and sometimes she's back 60 years ago. She thinks, she's 50 and she's still working or something. And she said, she's talking to, she's just getting back from work, and we just let her go on with the story. And it's all her memory recollections, and I mean, sometimes it's really hard because she can't remember other things, and she talked about last week, but. It's fun, but it's not fun, because
I know.
You just have to let it go. You have to let it.
I know what you feel because I work in aged care nowadays. I work in hospitality. I'm a carer as well here in Australia. That's a good thing in Australia. You develop yourself in the way that you can be whatever you'd like to be. And nobody judges here. That's a good thing. People say, go, just go, do it. You have many jobs, opportunities. You just go, become, study, and do it. And I become a carer after, my background with Greg, my ex-partner. You guys know about this. But it's, I work in aged care, and the stories they tell us, the elderly people, we get so fascinated because many of them, it's like 92, 100 years. And some of them speak, some no, unfortunately. But who they speak, they tell about stories about war. Tell about stories about really hard things. Yes.
And I think, like with technology and with social media, especially, I was having a dinner party the other day. And we were talking about this, and my friends laughed at me, and I said, because here I am living here, the kids would say so privileged, but it was because the information is so instant that we probably take it for granted. So it's the things that are happening in the world that are monumental, that are big changes, or a big, we're like, swipe, flick, whatever. Back when it was like, my grandma is 92. And
library.
At your school, we used to go to the library.
Books, guys. I don't know if you know this, but books, you have a big books, and you have to open that and check, and didn't have a subject you're looking, you close, and you have to book another book for see if you have that book. That's crazy.
No one else can use that book as well.
No, yeah, you book the book for 2 days. You have to run.
That's just that.
It's yours. And you have to see it, what's happening, what's this, what's that, blah blah blah. So believe me, so privileged.
Remember there's no computers looking at the book.
No.
You just have to pull the drawer out and you'd look up the little numbers.
Yeah.
And then you'd find the code, and then you'd have to go out into the library and you'd follow the code.
And check with the receptionist.
Yeah.
So they said, do you have a lucky? And she always like, I don't know. Check here in the book, because it was computer. It was a book of the book. Check if someone give back the book. Oh, nobody's giving back the book, so you have to come. So most of the time you have to walk around and go in another library until you find another book.
Yeah.
Wow. And now it's everything electronic, so easy to read, so easy to do everything. So you have audio books, you have everything. So the knowledge is there, just people don't wanna.
But my grandma is probably the person who got me into hospitality, I guess, really, because from the age of 4, my grandma is an amazing baker. She makes really good pastries and cakes, and so
that's nice.
Yeah, she used to make all the.
What's the heritage of your grandma?
My grandma, she's from England, and so she's British, and so her family came from Liverpool and from the north of England, and my granddad came from Ireland. So so we've got Irish English heritage that side.
Yeah.
So. And apparently there's a bit of Spanish thrown in there somewhere. So
wow,
yeah,
it's a lot. Brazilians. Yeah. We Brazilians, I have like 3 at least, because Portuguese, Spanish, a little bit of Italian, but my grandfather of my mom's part, he was black, so he was, the heritage was African. Yeah, so he are from African. So, and then my grandmother, she was indigenous. So my mom, when you're gonna meet my mom, you look her, it looks like I said, like he's indigenous. But she has a blonde hair. You couldn't believe it, guys. Long blonde hair. That's so funny. But my mom was funny. It's like the heritage is mixed. So I know how you're feeling about the heritage. It's crazy.
So grandma. No, it is, and I think the more you dive into it, and then you understand nature versus nurture, I guess, and the traits that are there because of the genes and not because they're learned. But grandma taught me how to bake, and I can show you upstairs. It's called Fred the Baker, and it's Home Pride is a brand in England. The flour, the Home Pride, and all the baking things is a brand, and their little iconic symbol was Fred the Baker. And so what they did back in the 70s was release Fred the Baker. It was a cooking set. So a model was about this big, and his bowler hat is the sieve, his head is the mixing bowl, and it all breaks apart. And that was like my baking set. And that lived at my grandma's house in the cupboard under the stairs. And every time I used to go and visit, we used to pull it out and we'd bake cakes together. And so from the age of 4, that's where I was always in the kitchen with her and baking. And I actually found Fred on the internet and bought him, and we did a cooking class for my grandma because of the Alzheimer's. And I'll show you a reel. It's beautiful because
she knows how to do it. It's kind of you put for them to do things. They know. I have one of the elderly there that she speaks Italian sometimes. She thinks I'm Italian. I don't know why, but she thinks I'm Italian. I'd say, some words. Piacere, come stai? Mi chiamo Giovanni. Mi chiamo Giovanni. La 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 la. Ecco. She started to talk to me in Italian. She's like, sure, but she speaks English. And people said, do you speak Italian? I said, I know a few words, but she knows Italian. I don't know Italian. That's crazy. But the heritage is beautiful. Like, it tells about our story, who I am, who you are, how you become, why we are this way. And now you become a little bit more experienced. You can like a vintage, not say old vintage, but we become like our like grandfather, grandmother, our mother, our father. You become like all the gestures that they have, our dictions, we have the same. That's crazy. I'll become really picky. I'm figuring out I'm picky because I'm only sharing a place with someone and my friend, and I become really picky about the organization because all will be organized. And when he left, and he goes to the kitchen, drop a cup here, and he goes there and he drops something there, and then I become like my mother and my father going behind and put back. We had not saying anything. And no, that's fine. Just beep, beep. Heritage. This is heritage, guys. You are become this way in somehow, believe me. Yeah. Well, tell, sorry.
I know and that's, I think, the heritage and the story and everything else is literally what the ethos of Authentic Wines is, my company.
Yes, I was talking about that. So talking about authentic wine brands. Tell a little bit of a story about authentic brands. What is authentic wine brand?
Yep. August 2020, so just turned 3 last month. So, but it was, I was before that, I was working for Sanford Wines as their national brand ambassador, and so an amazing job, which I'd sort of worked the career path up from being a sales rep in the wine industry to sort of the brand manager of a winery, and I was traveling interstate and Australia-wide because Sanford also have the Prenville Hotel Group, which own a number of hotels, and so I was going over and training some of the staff, or meeting with some of the big suppliers like Dan Murphy's, or the retailers rather, and doing the negotiations with them, and then doing in-store visits and trainings, and it's a great job, really fun. COVID hit and everything else, and we all thought hospitality, you're working in wine, you're recession proof, because it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you always drink, and it just depends on if you get married or you die or whatever, you always have a celebration or a commiseration, but it's just the level of wine that you sort of drink. But when a hospitality venue gets closed by the government, it's no one knows what's going to happen, and everything's like doomed, and so everybody was stood down, and so we had this time off, and if you ever come to Perth, we call it the bridges. There's the Narrows Bridge, which is the freeway down south, and then there's the Causeway Bridge, which is over by the Crown Casino. The bridges, so it's the two bridges. If you walk from one bridge to the other all the way around, it's 10 k's. So it's
I did that one day. My friend said to me, "Let's run." I said, "Yeah, let's run." I was like a 3, 5, 6k. I was like, "What the hell?" Yeah, I know.
You can cheat if you go in
the middle. Yeah, and then ferry. No, don't go.
But no, so because I used to live in South Perth, right by the Narrows Bridge. I started walking with different friends on different days in the mornings or in the afternoons, whatever, and we'd walk the bridges when we had our hour of exercise.
Yep.
And one of my good friends, Gay, who's a bit of a mentor for me, we did a couple of walks together, and she said, "Mark, you've spoken about doing your own business. Why don't you do it? Like now, Patrick's her husband is my accountant," and she was like, "You should speak to Patrick and sort of set it up." And I was like, "I probably could." And as stupid as it was, it's something I'd been working towards and what I wanted to do. And because the industry was becoming a little bit different, I thought, well, yeah, let's seize the opportunity. And so I did. I then did a program called NICE, which is like a government program, where you do a small business micro course. They help you, even though I'd actually sort of done most of the work pre doing this course of financial plans and business plans. They actually help you write your financial plan, your business plan. They have guest speakers each week where they'll introduce you to different people who can help you in certain aspects. So there's like another company called Many Rivers. They come in and they'll help people who if they're been unemployed for a little while, or if they're Indigenous, or if they want to set up their own business and they're a non-for-profit, and so it's great if you want to, if you find yourself in a position where you're unemployed but you want to do something, but you want to start your own business. There's lots of opportunities and lots of grants and things that can help you out, and so I sort of went down that path, and they give you a mentor for a year as well. So for the first year, you've got this mentor that you have to check in with and turn in financials and things, and they help coach you, and you can take as much or as little of that as you want. But it actually gave me a really invaluable little network of people. And then there's the Small Business Development Corporation, where they're fantastic too, because they offer a lot of small courses and workshops.
Yeah.
Where, because the government help out with that, they may cost you like $20, but it's like a small course on social media, or it's a small course on how to balance your books, or it's a small course on mental health and looking after yourself in your own business, or it's a small course on anything and everything to do with business. It could be doing a business plan, or it could be like employing somebody who's special needs or whatever. So, and they repeat these over a couple of months, so you can sort of pick and choose when it suits you. But I always try and do 1 or 2 of those at least a month, just to sort of keep my brain going, or to sort of brush up on some skills and things. And if you're planning to get your own website, there's workshops there to how to do. So you pay $20 and you do it, but it gives you all the information that you need to do and get it together. So when you go to a website developer, if that's the way you go, you don't waste a heap of money, because they're then coaching you how to plan and do all of this, because you've got it all work. And when I went to my website people, I just handed over a document and they were like, oh my God, this is easy, because I gave them all the information. But it was like the best $20 I spent.
Yeah, believe me, I think this is the good thing of Australia, because when you have everything settled, it's easy. They're not charging so much. Yeah, the people, they want to be more like assertive. Like, okay, you get to do it. Oh, no, you have them, so that's fine. That's amazing thing.
Yeah, and
what's the name of the program again?
So it's through the Small Business Development Corporation. I'll send you the link of so you've got it. And then there's all different types of courses and things that you can actually and there's also advisory. So if you get if you get into trouble, or if you've got a problem, they'll give you free advice, or point you in the right direction to who to speak to and things like that as well. So
look, you see, there is a lot of opportunity. So if you don't have your business, you don't want to have your business because you don't want to have your business, okay? But there is no easy way, isn't it, Mark?
No.
Because it's like you have to move yourself. You have to look. There is many hours you work for free. There is many extra hours. You're gonna do things. You always will be planning. You'll be self-employed. It's not easy at all,
And trust me.
Yeah.
Your family and your friends, as much as they're supportive, and they are, mine have been fantastic. Sometimes they don't understand that you haven't replied to SMS, or you haven't replied to that text message, or you haven't replied, or you're not going to that lunch, or because you can't. You're too busy. And if you don't do it, or if you don't get that deadline met, or if you don't do it, then who else is going to do it? So So
it happens. You have to understand that everybody has their own dreams. It's different when you work for Monday to Friday in a place like 8 to 6 p.m. and that's it. After that, you're free. But someone that depends on hospitality, they work in the weekends, and then, man, that's it. That's the thing. So, could you tell me a little bit, like, what's your inspiration for create the authentic wines?
Yeah, so that's that. Sorry, you'll have to pull me in sometimes because I tend to go off on tangents.
No, that's fine. Is it about your heritage?
What we were talking about as a little background then, an introduction, the heritage and the authenticity, or the soul. So I try and I select the brands I work with like I would write a wine list. One, that they're not competing with each other, so they work with each other. But two, they've got a sense of purpose, they've got a soul, and they've got a story. So I can go into places and I can tell their story, their soul, what they're all about. They're not a company that's owned by a big a corporation, or a big brand that's just hiding behind a little name on a because you can go into a bottle shop and you can see 20 Chardonnays on the shelf, and maybe 4 of those or 5 of those are owned by one company, and it's all different labels, and they're owned by Woolworths, or they're owned by somebody else. So it's and they're great wines, but people, you can be fooled, sometimes. So I like to work with those, and that's with COVID, everything was turned on its head. We didn't know what hospitality was going to be like, whether how much it was going to change, and what it was. So I looked at what a wine distributor did, or a wine sort of marketing person did, and sort of broke it down into segments. So then I could be like a consultant or an agent, as I guess, and a winery or a person in the wine industry can employ me for one part or one aspect, or employ me for the whole lot. So when with the wineries that I represent, they normally employ me for the winery packages. So it's like I'm working as a distributor, so for sales and marketing. But you've had venues where they've hired me to write a wine list for them, or I'll go in and help organise a function for them, or things like that. So or staff training. So it's broken down into those little aspects, and then people can take me on for like a 6-month contract, 12-month contract, or we just go on the journey to where if they've given me a goal at the start and we've got there, then that's it. So the people I'll be working with will be constantly changing as well. So it's not like a traditional distributor where and they've got the same brands for all their lives. I'll be swapping and changing and working with different people and just sort of helping them find their path to where they want to go.
Because that's the good thing and the bad thing as well. The books teach you that, but you have to adapt to yourself for the customer. You never know who is the staff working with you, which generation is coming, because you have a Gen Z, you have a different kind of generation. The approach is different. They are much more like, I can see, sensitive when you communicate. You can't communicate straight away to something like, oh, hold on, be ready. So I totally understand that.
And it's funny, I love those YouTube clips where you see kids where they've been given like a dial-up telephone or a personal Walkman, and they're asked, what is this? And they're all like trying to work out what it is.
Yeah.
When you're in a restaurant and a bottle of wine comes up on the bar to go to a table, all the staff will like, you shouldn't call them the kids, but all the kids will run up to the and they'll be taking the wines. But then you notice that this one bottle of wine is not moving, and you walk over there and you realise it's got a cork in the top.
It's kind of like that. And look, let's talk about the services you provide. I was literally surfing the website. I felt this website is amazing, well done. And also it's very like you have a kind of variety, different kinds of services, which make me feel like, whoa, many questions. Okay, so can you explain like the wine brokerage? Is it a channel that brings people to buy wine, or something that is a sale markets or companies?
So it's that's one of the sort of things where a winery could say ring up or speak to me and say, look, we've got this wine from this vintage. I need to move it. Can you find a home for it? So, then we can call up on some of the contacts, whether it goes on to private sellers, third party sort of like a clearance sort of avenue, or if it goes to, one of the wine websites, or that sell wines and things, or I go out and sell it to some venues in Perth, depending on what they want to do with the brand. But that's what that is. Or the normal services is selling it into licensed venues within Perth. But we're also changing, and at the end of the month, launching the new website, which will be Authentic Wine Brands Store online.
Good, coming up.
Yes, so and that's going to be wine-themed merchandise and giftware. So it'll be homewares, giftwares, clothes. There'll be some educational resources and things and tools, and also there'll be like a wine club and gift packages. So we can get some flowers and wine, or a hamper and wine, and package things up like that. So that'll be another way brokerage we can get rid of wine through that avenue.
That's amazing. That's good. I was like, wow, this is a really interesting question. Also, isn't a brand building service? Do you guys create the label, or you guys like the company comes with the label, but they don't know how to distribute or create or how to share this in the market? So you guys literally recommend how they put this in the market. This is like, okay, the trend in the market is this, people consume this thing, and you should do this, that. How is working this way? way?
That's some of the wineries, yes, we do. They've already come to us and they've got labels and things, and so we can advise what works, what doesn't work. And it's always interesting because what works in retail doesn't necessarily work in on-premise, so you have to try and marry the two together. Because and I always say to somms or to restaurant managers, if they don't like the label, I'm like, well, your guest doesn't see the wine label until they've already ordered the wine and it's been poured at the table, or the glass arrives at the table. So you don't have to worry about the label. But because sometimes wine labels are designed to stand out on the shelf and be different. So there is a difference opinions with some people, but. I've done that service when we was in Sandalford and we had the new range 1840. We designed that whole label about the story of the wine and everything else, and did the whole start to finish of that. And
wow, that's amazing. Also, I check the training. I love the part of training because I've been working in hospitality for over years. I can count in one hand how many managers train me. Like, I didn't have a training. You have some complaint, you learn by the complaint, the mistake, you learn by the mistake. That's it. Nobody's sit you in a chair, a group of people, and they say, hey, let's go. This is the wine, this is this, that, can happen this. Nothing like that. So I saw you guys doing this, which is amazing. Well done. Keep going, because people are different and people needs to be teach, for you being amazing employee. How come without training?
And also, if you're a restaurant and you change the menu and you change the wine list, if a staff member hasn't tried that wine or hasn't tried that food or hasn't tried that combination, how can they sell it?
Exactly. So when you are training people, you guys hire people as you just the training what you're doing, you training the company the own employees, or
so there's a couple of ways we do it. So if we've just written the wine list, or if we've gone in and helped with put a few wines on the wine list type of thing, then we'll go in and we'll do some sessions with the staff there. So depending on what, again, everything is so tailor-made and organic. It really depends on what people want. So we can do it as short and as simple as possible, or we can do it over a few weeks and go as intensive as possible. And because with wine training, like anything, yes, well, there's so much. It's the varieties, the varietals of wine. It's how wine's made. It's food pairings. It's the wine service in general. So that you can. Yeah, there's so much you can teach.
If the company want to hire you guys for a function, for example, do you have a company that you recommend to work with, staff members? You can hire these staff members as well?
Yeah. And then, and also, if you want private chefs and things, if you're doing events outside, then we've got a little book of contacts that we tend to use, because you like to use people you trust or have the same ethics and morals in the same values in companies. So, because then you're working the same way.
Yes, I believe so. So you're talking about the wines, and then you're talking about how to develop the wines, how is people need to try the wines. I noticed nowadays, before the wines was literally the same labels, it was a little bit cream, red, something, and the bottom the cover is red or something not so special. And I noticed most of the wines now, they have a different label, something more attractive for the eyes, lots of colors, something that depends on where the wine comes from, shows about the heritage of the country. If you go to Spain, they have something more colorful. If it comes for the Portugal, they have something more traditional. In my country, it depends on where you're going, you have more traditional, all the same labels. Do you think is really important nowadays, the label, to attract the eyes of people? Because, for example, some people, they have the attraction for something colorful, oh yeah, this is colorful wine, let me see, this is a Merlot. And I was thinking about something coming on, okay, I go for this way, boom, I get this way. So do you think the label is important for wines?
Totally, yes. I mean, it is and it isn't, but it's what sells the labeling is the branding. So you've got to have a clear message and a message that is consistent. You can't have swap change because you need to get brand recognition, and people, look at all the big brands, like Coca-Cola, for instance. That Coke or Coca-Cola, it's had slight tweaks over the years, but that's just stayed exactly the same. All your iconic brands have stayed like that, the slightest little tweak, but you keep your recognition the same. But with wine labels, I guess people follow trends and fashion. Fashion, you look at the fashion and look at, so we go through a phase where, our clothes or our fashion is quite traditional or clean cut, but then, it comes through, then, they get a bit louder, or the design, gets a bit more flamboyant. So labels are like that. And styles of wine go a little bit like that. So Chardonnay, back in like the late 80s, early 90s, Chardonnay here in Australia was, especially Western Australia, was big and bold and buttery, and so they got so oaky that it was almost like being hit around the back of the head with a plank of wood, because when you're trying it, you're like, whoa, and it's huge. And it was all about the oak and the malolactic fermentation, which is that creaminess that you taste. And people still was like, New Zealand was then brought over their SB, which is this like tropical fruit, passion fruit, like bang, and you had that on a beautiful hot day like today, and you're like, oh my god, this is refreshing, and it's juicy, and it's aromatic, and it's like, wow, So that's what. That's how we went on that huge trend of Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, and Chardonnay was like, anything but Chardonnay, ABC, and it fell out of fashion. And so Chardonnay, except for the sort of the older demographic or serious sort of wine drinkers, we're still drinking Chardonnay, but the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc and SBS from WA especially, was the style of wines that we drank for a long time. And then the winemakers realised, we've got all this Chardonnay planted, we need to do something, because we still have the fruit, and it takes a long time to change a vineyard over if you're changing a variety. So they had to do something with that brand, or with the fruit. So it became they peeled back the oak, and it almost became like a big pendulum swing, like on a grandfather clock. So it was up here when it was swinging, and this was all the big oakiness and everything else. But then with fashion, this oakiness and everything else, and it's come right up to this end, the pendulum, where it became like really sort of like grapefruity and pithy and lemon, and quite like acidic, because they peeled back all the oak, and it's a completely different style. So when people say, I don't like Chardonnay, I'm like, oh man, you've got to relook at it. Well, anyway, I always say, if you're in a bottle shop and somebody's doing a wine tasting, always say yes. It's only a sip, because you get to try something, and then you get to know if you don't like it. Because with Chardonnay like that, there are so many different styles, because one, it depends if it comes from a cool region or a warmer region or a Mediterranean climate. The terroir, the way where it's grown, it will be different, because the temperature will ripen the fruit. So you get if it's in a warmer climate, you're going to get a richer, more powerful style. And if it's in a cooler climate, it takes longer to ripen, and you're going to get more of that sort of lemony stone fruit and more acidic sort of flavour characteristics. But then the winemakers and with the vineyard managers then can manipulate that a little bit, because they can pick at different times and try and, but you've got to balance that. But also vineyards, you pick, maybe I do 3 or 4 picks through, it all depends. But then you've got the oak, and so the oak is a whole new thing where the cooperage with the barrel. So you have French oak and American oak, the main two. And we always say, well, what's the difference between the two? And I say, I stole this from a winemaker, Hope, and this story where we say oak is like, you go into a cocktail party and you're scanning the room to find your friends, and you're looking around, and this person over here is really loud, and got like big loud shirt on, and this big American accent, and he's like got his camera out, and it's like rah, 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 and it's just like loud and in your face, and like oof. And then you look over here, and there's this like dignified, like beautiful French lady who's like sophisticated and like, yeah, that's French oak. So so your French oak is a lot more subtle and a lot more dignified and restrained and elegant, as the American oak is a lot more boisterous and bigger and bolder. So that's
I know, difference.
So that's how I like to train people with wine too, is to sort of take it back and take the wank out of it and give people, explain it in a story that they can relate to, you know. And then we talk about like the oak inside the barrel, because what happens then, to waterproof those barrels so that the wine, when it's put inside, isn't leaked out, what they do is they actually, the oak is manipulated and bent, and then they put the rings around it, and then what they do is they either hover it over a fire, or they'll get a flame and go inside, and they toast the inside of the oak. And what that does is it melts the sap, burns the sap, and seals the inside of the barrel, makes it waterproof. But what the winemakers can do is they can order it like a slice of toast, where you can have it, you know, where you put a slice of toast in the toaster and it's hardly toasted, or where you've forgotten about it because you were brushing your teeth or whatever and you were on the phone and it's gone jet black. So and then you can have it any way in between. And that toastiness is the smokiness that you normally taste in wines. So the darker, a lot of winemakers go for a medium toast, so you get a hint, but it's like all that matchstick or whatever. But you don't. It doesn't overpower the wine. But sometimes you can get like a really smoky wine, or like. That's where the barrel's been toasted a lot more, and that's where that charriness or that smokiness is coming from. So you know, a winemaker might decide, I'll have 70% of my barrels medium toast, 10% a little bit darker toast, and they play around with it like a chef. So there's a lot that goes into. And that's what, you know, where people say, well, why is this wine worth $50 and this wine's worth $150? It's what goes into
how
it.
It's
how it's made. Yeah. Because one barrel is, you know, $1,500 plus. So when you hear, you know, this wine is, you know, 80% brand new French oak, or 100% brand new French oak, or like 30% brand new French oak, that means they've bought brand new barrels for that vintage. So if it's a, you know, small winery, it might be 100 barrels. If it's a big winery, it could be a lot more. So you imagine $1,500 plus each of those barrels, you know, that's a big investment. So that's one of the reasons why. And plus the cost of fruit, if the vintage, you know, winemakers are in the hands of the gods, because you're working in the agricultural industry. You're a farmer, so you're relying on the weather and everything else. And that's why sustainability and organics and things, and people are looking at, and that's why I like working with the smaller guys too, because they've been responsible, and they're looking at what they're doing to the farms and things, and they're because your hands are the gods of the vintages, so you're reliant on how much quantity of fruit that you get in and out, and so you might have a bumper crop the one year, or you might have a very small crop the next year. But that, having a smaller brand, you can tell the story, and you can say, oh yeah, this vintage we haven't got so much of that this year, so because, you know, to keep the quality, we didn't pick so much, or we left some of the fruit on the vine because it wasn't up to standard, or we've only made so much because you only take the best bit of the fruit. So that's why you have that vintage variations.
Vintage variations is something that people don't understand. I like personally, I don't understand. What I learned is like more vintage, more the wine is older, it's much better.
Yes and no. Yes, in general. So, I mean, a vine itself, you can plant a vineyard, and I mean, you can get fruit off of vines pretty much straight away, but you probably want to wait about 7 years, probably before you start making wine from that fruit. And the reason for that is you've planted the vine, and your vine's grown, but you're establishing the roots that are going down in the ground, and they're trying to find the water table. So, I mean, because yes, you irrigate and you're giving them water while they're young and they're babies, but you want them to find that water table, and then where it is, and so that way then it's a natural irrigation, and then the roots will stop growing. So then all the nutrients and everything else, because they're not growing as rapid as they used to, all that vigor and growth of nutrients is grown into the vine, and then you get better quality fruit. So before that, the vine is competing with the growth of the roots.
But then how come they become like I see some wines, they say made in 2022?
That's the vintage. That's when that was when it was picked. So fruit was picked in 2022, and then the wine was made. So if it's a white wine, you might get that out. Like Rieslings and Sauv Blancs and Sauv Blancs, all those fresh aromatic wines will be coming out sometimes later in that year, or it'll be the start of the next year, depending on the style of the winemaker. Because if it doesn't go into oak, it normally goes into stainless steel tanks to ferment, and so that's like a quicker turnaround of because to go into oak, it's a fermentation process that normally is a longer process, because you're wanting to get some of the characters of the oak flavour influence into the wine, or you wanted to get some texture or something like that. So they will come out a year or 2 years later. But yeah, the vintage is that, and so when you look at the vintage, you will know as well. So over east they've had a lot of bushfires, and they had really hot vintages and things. So you'll know that some years, if it should have been a cooler region for like Pinot and things, but it was a really warm year. The Pinot probably not going to be as nice as it usually is. Yeah. So if you're deciding on a wine list or in a bottle shop, and you're looking at the two wines, and you don't know. You don't know about the same price. And you look at the region, you look at the vintage, and then you're like, oh, that vintage over there was a bit warmer, and whatever. It's probably not going to be as good as this one. But it's a gamble, And look, and also it's you can buy the same bottle of wine and try it, and because you yourself are in a different mindset, it can taste completely different. But also, I always say, whenever I'm drinking Chardonnay, you've got it in the fridge, I always pour in a glass with two friends, whatever, and then I'll just put the bottle of Chardonnay on the kitchen bench, and then we just carry on talking and cooking and whatever, and then drink like that. I never put it back in the ice bucket or back in the fridge, because Chardonnay especially, it'll open up, and we drink it too cold. A lot of our wines we drink here in Australia because it's so warm.
Is it correct when you put, you're saying about it too cold, is it correct to put the wine, the red wine, in the fridge after you open?
So good question. There's, I never really have leftover wine in my house, so
that's the reason. But I take one glass and then I put back in the fridge, and people said to me, your fridge should be, for putting the wine back to the fridge, should be in the temperature that wine should be.
Yeah.
But how come?
Yeah, so it's the flavor profiles, and it's also it's having the wine at the right temperature makes the wine taste like it should be at that temperature, but also everybody at home can do this. Get the next glass of wine they have, especially good wine out of the fridge. If they pour a glass of that wine, and even a red wine, the first time you open it, get 2 glasses, pour the one wine, leave it on the side, and then get the other glass of wine, and then pour it and drink it as you would normally.
Yeah.
Half an hour later, go back to that wine that you poured over here and try it, and see what it tastes like. Leave it again. Half an hour later, go back and try that type of wine and try it again.
It seems like intoxication.
It's sips, it's taste, it's not drinking.
Okay, yeah. All right.
But no, it's because that wine opens up in the glass or in the decanter. People, and people say about decant, when should you decant a wine? If you've got the opportunity, decant wine all the time, especially reds. So even a wine that's $10 will taste better out of a decanter than it does out of a bottle, because you've just opened wine's been trapped in that bottle since the
flavor, everything to be like that.
Yeah, and so it's been in a closed vessel, and it's all like really tightly wound up. You put it into a decanter, and the reason why you put it into the decanter is you're aerating it, and it's swirling it around, and you're just opening that wine up and getting all those flavors out. That's why when people try or taste wine, if they're doing like a proper wine tasting and they swirl the glasses, it's you're pushing that wine around the glass, so you're opening it up to let some of the aromatics out.
What do you consider a good decanter?
A good decanter? See, this again, like everything has got.
Do you need to pay so much in a decanter?
No, you don't, but you do. Like, this is where the snobbery in
okay, so you can say, for example, you don't have so much to invest in a decanter, but
you can decant into a kitchen jug if you want to.
Yeah, but it's better a decanter without no decanter.
Yeah. Look, if you haven't got a decanter at home, you can use, a glass jug. a clean teapot, not that it has been used for tea. You can use anything to decant. The thing that you're doing with the decanting is you're opening that wine up. And so if you're having a dinner party as well, open the wines, a couple of hours before the dinner party.
Really?
Yeah, just
to make it like the flavor comes up,
exactly,
and like a mix up.
Yeah, and that's it. Like what I said, if you get the 2 glasses of wine and just try it and see the wine, how that's evolved in that glass over the couple of hours compared to when you're just drinking the wine.
You saying that it's different. Oh, look, that's a good thing. I notice when I'm saying I want to drink a glass of wine, and I open a new wine and I put without the decanter. When I take the wine, I feel more hungover without the decanter and not preparation, like you saying, because I feel like all the alcohol comes straight away. Like you drink this, it's kind of inside our body, like boom, like this. 1 glass of wine, I feel like so drained. Like, oh my gosh, it looks like I drink so much. But it now makes sense when you say about this, open the wine, then put in the decanter, they got the flavor, and then you drink the wine. I
don't know how true it is for whether it's the hangover or not. Drink more water as well.
Yeah, but I drink one glass, and I feel so much different when you drink 1 glass without doing this preparation. It makes so much sense.
If you've got an empty stomach, there's that'll make the wine go to your head quicker, and there's lots of different things, but. That'll make the wine. Pouring it into the decanter will make it taste much better. It opens it up. You taste it as the winemaker would want it tasting, because and then the other thing is some with red wines. Me personally, I like them when they've had about 7 or 8 years of bottle aging. So if it was a vintage that was 2000, so it's 2023 now. So if you take 7-8 years off of that, so 2015 and beyond, but before it would be where I'd look for what reds if I'm trying to buy a red. But then again, it depends on that's for like a Cabernet or a Shiraz, not.
All depends of kind of wine, guys.
And with the decanters, like with glassware, people say about glassware and there is a science behind glasses. So like Riedel, which is a German brand of wine glasses, are fantastic, and you've got all your different shapes and sizes. And what that basically, you've got your 5 senses in your mouth, and it's a sweet, salty, tasty, and it's sour, and so different wines. You want to pull it. So like a Riesling, it's all about that citrus and the acidity. So the acidity is always like you feel it like down here. Chardonnays are that buttery, or the richness, or the texture and the generosity around the mouth. Cabernet, they call it the donut. So Cabernet, you taste it at the front of your mouth, you taste it at the sides, and then you taste it at the back, and it misses the middle bit of your mouth. So
I didn't know that. I was thinking the taste is all the same.
But what they do is winemakers will actually they mix something to put the jam in the donut. To make it more complete.
I see it many times. People doing the mouth washing, but it's like a.
Yeah, so that's basically that. So you're doing. So when you're decanting the wine, you're rushing that wine around the decanter. So when you're trying a wine professionally or at a restaurant, you swirl it in the glass. You sniff, because swirling it will lift the aromatics out of the glass. So with certain proper glassware for proper wine styles, so like a Pinot and a Chardonnay glass, it's like a bowl, like with a Riesling glass, it's more thinner and taller, but it pushes the aromatics up out of the glass. So when you smell it, you're smelling those. Champagne flutes, you're not supposed to swirl champagne to taste it, because the bubbles are bringing the aroma out of the glass. And if you swirl the champagne, you actually turn it flat. So that's why the flutes are tall and thin, or the tulip-like. But then what happens then is that glassware is designed to push that wine varietal onto into the area of your mouth where you're supposed to taste that flavour. But what the people are doing when they're swinging it around the mouth is they're then making sure that all of the flavour is pushed around all the aspects of the mouth.
Yep.
So they're trying the whole complete package, and 2, they're aerating it a bit in the mouth as well. So it's 2 two reasons. And then if you're in a wine tasting, you can be spitting it out, or you can you swallow it. But it depends on how much wines you're going to taste.
That's amazing. Mark, how are you guys going working with social media? Because, you know, that is a TikTok, you have Instagram, you have the Reels, you have many brands. They, you know, people are being paid to talk about wines and different kinds of brands. They, you know, there is so many wines, they're not good, but people pay a good money for that influencer. They have a lot of people and they go and do the review. This is amazing, this is, and people buy it.
Yeah.
How are you guys dealing with that? Like sometimes the wine is not good or something that people want to that wine.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's again, it's when you can get caught up in those sort of big brands, or those brands that are sort of bastardize themselves sometimes. You know, that they've gone to the Kardashians of the world or whatever. You know, where just because they want to be in that phase or in that thing. But if you want continuity, if you want consistency, and you want to build a brand, you work with things and with ideas and concepts that will last the test of time and have, you know, they're not a fad, they're not a trend. That wine is made like that because that's the ground it's grown in. You know, we're not trying to be something
popular. It's just like a good quality of wine.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And how works, like, for example, virtual tasting?
Virtual tastings. So again, so what we can do is if there was like a company that's got offices around the world or around Australia, or we can actually send the wine to the office, and we can then zoom in, or like FaceTime, or you know, Teams, or whatever platform that the company uses, and it can be myself or the winemaker, and we can be talking to everybody around the country or in the office, or if we got the winemaker. I mean, this was brought because the borders were closed. A lot of the winemakers couldn't come over from you know, even South Australia to Perth, because you couldn't get across the border. So it wasn't just myself sort of telling the story. We did an event at the Heritage in the city, where and it was an International Shiraz Day, and it was a Barossa Shiraz. And so what we did is we had 15 people around the table from different restaurants and venues and bottle shops in Perth, and we did like a masterclass in Shiraz. But then the winemaker was in the middle of the vineyard in the Barossa and zoomed in, and we had it up on the screen, and so we're having a conversation with the winemaker, and then tasting the wines, and so that's what we sort of do. So it's
so like you sharing like what the people said, and they see if it's the same. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Do you guys have a membership for Authentic Wines brand?
So there's two websites. So there's authenticwinebrands.com.au, which is the current website, which is about more for the trade and wholesaling side of things, or winery and things, but it also shows what the events and things that we do. About to launch this month, coming, the Authentic Wine Brands store.com, which is where you can get a membership, and you can have things like that where you can purchase packages and things, and the store will also be a wine-themed, apparel, giftware, clothing, and things like that. And I show you. This was. You gave me a present as we started.
Hey.
Yes. So this was
my mug.
Yeah.
You know, simple way.
This is very cool.
You give me something fancy, I'll give you a mug.
No. Well, no. I thought I'd give you a mug.
I can find my glass. Amazing. Love it.
So this is a. Some of the products are actually named after people. So when you jump on the website, this is Penny. So my friend Penny.
I remember. I know her.
So she came over one time, and we were sitting by the pool, and it was a beautiful day, and we were drinking rosé, and we probably had a few too many glasses of rosé. And then the next day, she was like, "I can't find my sunglasses. Can you know where they are? Are they by the pool?" And so this is Penny. I can't find my glasses.
Yay! Well done. Thank you so much.
But I love this. So if we were upstairs, we could have had our coffee.
Yeah. Of course, at least. Question. Let's change about the curiosity about wines, because people, you know, when I was doing this, we are doing the script. I was asking people, I was like, what do you know about wines? And people say, I don't know about this, that. So I brought some questions and things like that. What's a perfect wine for you, for example?
A perfect wine.
It has to be expensive or cheap?
No, it just has to be balanced.
Balanced.
Yes. So
balanced, you mean the flavor? When they being...
So yeah, balance. Yeah. So the flavor, it's not. You're not drinking it too young. You're not drinking it too old. It's balanced. It's if it's something's not sticking out when you're trying it. It's just, but yeah, and it's really hard for me when I go to a bottle shop because I've accessed wholesale price of wines, and so then say for whatever reason I'm running late.
And you look like a shit. Good. Shit. No. Okay, cool.
No.
What a relief.
I'm looking at them like, oh my god, I can get that wholesale for that price. Do I want to spend that much?
I know.
But no, I mean,
it's all about the label.
Yeah. But no, I mean, my go-to wine, if I'm I drink Chardonnay. So so Chardonnay and Pinot are the two wines that I drink a lot of. I do like Riesling as well, and Champagne or Sparkling. So they're the varieties that tend to. And rosé. It will rotate around my house. But if I go to a venue, I always try and pick something that I haven't drank before, especially if it's by the glass.
Yep.
Just so I can taste it and see what it's about. Or if there's something that people are talking about, or there's a wine or a particular vintage.
You go from there.
I'll go from there. Yeah. But
beautiful.
Also, I mean, the wines the marriage, food and wine is like a marriage.
Okay.
Some things work, some things don't.
Doesn't. So it's all about your taste as well.
Yeah, and you can. It depends. I went and seen Heston Blumenthal. He's like one of my favourite chefs, and he actually came to Perth a number of years back. Probably about like 2012. He did a thing. It was when Gourmet Escapes was coming down, and he did a thing at the concert hall. And this is always stuck in my mind because we not only taste with what's in our mouth, the sense in your mouth, you're tasting with your eyes, your ears,
touching,
and everything else. Yeah.
How is the experience? Why are you hoping for this?
Yeah. So when he says, he used to go on holidays and, you'd be going to these amazing cellar doors in south of France or something, and, you've just driven past the coast and you got like the feeling of like, the waves crashing or whatever, and it's like the smell in the air is beautiful and clean, and you go to the cellar door and it's beautiful and there's some beautiful music playing, and you're all like, oh, I'm on holiday, I'm relaxed. I'm like, oh, wow. You try this wine, and you're like, oh my God, this is the best wine I've ever tried. I'll take 3 cases, send it home, And then you get home, you've had a crap day at work, whatever, and you pull out one of these bottles of wine and you taste it, and you're like,
that's shit.
Yeah, but it's because your mindset and everything else is in
outside, in a trip, or sometimes you are with people.
But also, you don't have those other influences. You have the ocean smells and things, and whatever. And that. So what he did then is he actually
selling the experience.
Yeah, with that too as well. But what Heston did, he asked for 5 volunteers, and I was like, there's no way. Even though I know a bit about wine, I'm not getting up on stage. So I was like, hands underneath my even though I wanted to get up and meet Heston, I've got no way, he's going to play a trick because that's what he does with his food. So yeah, he pulled these 5 people up out of the audience and he gave them some wine, and he gave them a red wine to try, and he gave them a white wine to try. And while they were trying the red wine, he then played some like real rich and intense classical music, it's just got a lot of like the double bass and the strings and things like that. And when when the people were trying the white wine, it was still classical music, but it was more sort of like harps and like lighter and fresher and things. And then what he asked them to do is write down like the first words that they sort of thought about when they tried these wines. And so when they tried the white wine, they sort of came back to him and said, oh, it was lemon, citrus, refreshing, all these, the generic sort of describing words. When he tried the red wine, they were like, oh, it was rich, it was bold, it was fruity, it was forest floor. And he was like, yeah, okay. And he said, well, the red wine was actually the white wine, but with red food colouring in and left out of the fridge. So you're actually drinking the same wine, but because you are looking at it and your brain is associating red wine with certain flavours and certain fruit flavours, you've picked out those fruit flavours with your mind. But with the white wine, you're associating. You think, okay, straight away, you think, this wine should have this flavour. You've looked for that flavour and you've pulled it out. But it was actually the same wine, and the only difference is temperature. And that's where I was getting about the wines, pouring that wine in the glass and leaving it. The wine changes in that glass.
Yeah.
So, that was it's a good exercise to sort of trick people, but also it shows you that the power of everything is that's why you're in a restaurant. You want to make sure that the lighting's perfect. You want to make sure that
for make people buy. That's it, and by the experience as well.
It's like when you go to the supermarket. If the supermarket is really busy, their background music will be a lot more quicker and faster. If it's super slow, they'll put so if they're not so busy, the music will be a bit slower, and it makes you take your time. If you ever watch that, you'll notice.
They want to earn money, and they're smart. So, for example, now you're in spring. What's the best wine for spring?
So spring, we come in. Yeah, wine is very transitional. So in that, yes, we tend to drink more white wines in summer and red wines in winter. So we're coming out of the cold, and so a lot of people tend to be drinking the bigger style reds because that's you're cold and you're at home, and I don't know. Me personally, I drink more red in the winter than I do in the summer. So I would be drinking things that. So what are we eating at the moment? Spring is lamb. Like spring lamb, spring vegetables, spring salads. Things like that. So. I would be drinking things that match with that. So, a Riesling, a Gamay, a Pinot, anything a little bit not so heavy or rich.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think about zero alcohol wines?
Look.
I know I made this question because all the guys I work with wines, I know, they just like hate it, zero alcohol wines. You guys don't like it?
Oh, no, it's not that I don't like it. It's like...
It's just no wines.
Yeah, you should take the alcohol. So basically, so how you make wine is the winemaker with the viticulturalist is looking at the ripeness of the fruit of the grapes on the vine, and they're looking at the sugar levels, because the sugars in the fermentation turn into alcohol. So what they do is they pick the fruit at a certain BOMI, which is the fruit level, the sugar levels. Then it ferments, and you add it, and those sugars turn into alcohol and happen, and then the dead yeast cells, that's filtered away or whatever. To do zero alcohol wines, you've then got to take that process out of that, and that's not a natural process. So you're ripping out something that is
supposed to
be there. So if you can have a zero alcohol wine, have a mocktail, have a fruit juice.
Amazing. What do you think? What's the best food for you for wine? I know it all depends. If white and red wine, but
so it's also really interesting. I tell this story sometimes too. As a Western culture, we look at the protein first, and tend to match wines with the protein, and then look at the accompaniments on the dish. And I went to a dinner at the Hyatt, and Fungi, who's the master of wine in Singapore, and she's a female, she was talking, it was a complete Chinese banquet, and she talked about pairing wines over there, and what they do is they look at the region the dishes come from, and what the region is trying to showcase in that. So like if you're Szechuan and you're looking at the pepper and the spice, so they look at bringing that out in the flavour of the dish, and then they look at the protein secondary. So we will look at that's duck, we need to go with like a Pinot or a Gamay or something like that, or if it's a fish, depending on the fish, the meatiness, we'll go with a lighter white wine or a more substantial white wine.
It all depends.
It all depends. So it's that, and that's the fun thing about doing a wine dinner and a wine matching and things.
I love wine anyway, any kind of food. That's it.
Well, and also I think cheeses. A lot of people think, you're having a dinner party.
You match cheese with some fruits.
Well, they think that at the end of a dinner party or whatever, you're onto your reds by then. So that your cheese board, you'll be drinking reds or ports. Some of the best combinations of cheeses is Chardonnay and Riesling and Champagne, and it's the fattiness of so you look at some of the French cheeses that you've left out for half an hour, and when you slice into them, and they just go bleh.
Yeah.
You need an acidic wine or a wine with some acidity to cut through that fattiness. So that's, and it'll clean up. You clean.
That's the zero alcohol wine. It doesn't do, guys. Just let you know. Sorry, guys. Sorry, the guys are driving. Just don't drive. Bullshit. That's it. Okay. So, just guys, to let you know, all the QR code for authentic wines will be in the screen all the time, so you can go and hire Mark for all the services we provide. And there is a new website coming up soon, so the membership's coming up soon, so which is good for you love wines. And the website, they always provide some articles as well. They have some tips about wines and brands new coming up. So guys, keep an eye. Change subject, Mark. How you look after your mental health?
Oh yeah,
it's enjoying like the Yellow September. It's mental health is something like you guys and everybody has to look after. So how you look after for mental health? Because look, you have a business. It's too much. I know this because I work 55 hours per week in 2 jobs. Plus, I have an extra job, which is it's not a job. For me, it's a passion. It's talking to people. It has a podcast. But it's extra hours you're working on editing this script, layout, and go outside, preparing. Just for making the interview, we changed 2-3 places because of the sun.
Yeah.
So it's sun. Oh no, it's gonna burn the camera. It's gonna blow up, and then, so you know. What I mean.
I think. Look, I suffered with my mental health this year, and still coming through a journey of that, where probably
do you look up, you're doing therapy, you're doing some
so no, I think the thing is you really need to make sure you speak to have a good network of friends. So I've started doing some work with Lifeline WA as well with Vince Scarefa. Mental health, I think it's huge, and there's such a bad stigma of mental health. And if you suffer mental health, you're weak. It's not that you're weak. It's that
everybody has suffer mental health. I do sometimes, and I took some time off, and I do and centralize everything. I start to study Reiki. I start to do this, start to do that for understand what's happening. Like nowadays, everything is it's not saying expensive, but the price is going up. So you have to work more. You used to work like this kind of hours. Now it's not enough. You have to do more things. So you have to do that. You cut it off things. You're more busy, or, and lots of problems around. So it's normal. Yeah. It's something that you always have to talk.
Yeah, and it's also one of the workshops that I did through the Small Business Development Council was we're listening to these consultant, and he sort of said, because I'm so what's that saying where don't judge people the same way your own expectations on yourself, like, because you'll always be disappointed because they'll never be
Yeah.
It's like I always try and do the best I do. So whether it's presentation or whatever, or the WA with the Small Business Awards submissions and things, and the first year I was driving there, and I knew my submission was going to be, I thought I was going to be late, and I was just like, but I wanted to make sure that the presentation had this and that and these photos and this and that and the other, and I wanted it to look perfect. And he said, but that's the gold leafing. He said, only you knew. It's like, you go to a fancy china shop and the plate's already got the flowers and everything on there, but then it's got the little gold leaf just painted on the edge of the flowers as well. It doesn't need the gold leaf per se, but it's already decorated and it already looks beautiful, but you're gold leafing it. So yes, you should be doing those 1%ers that you do, and that's what makes you successful, but you don't need to do them all the time, every time. And that's where you've got to learn to scale back a bit, because you're putting too much pressure on yourself to achieve this.
That fame.
Yeah, so
under the society and all the thing around. Yeah. I think we need to be more take it easy with ourselves. We comparing ourselves too much.
Yeah, you get caught up in that social media bubble and making sure you've put things out that, you know, you've posted this, I've been to this place, or I've been to that place, or I'm doing this, I've done that, and you keep trying to keep up with the Joneses, and, you know, for what?
Yeah, I know the feeling. Question. So I always like to ask people on the point of view what they think about the place they are living. For example, you're living here in Australia, which is one of the best places worldwide, developed country, everything is beautiful, organized, but sometimes the media doesn't show things that you see. They show what they want to see. You know this. But what do you think is a good thing in Australia that people don't know? But sometimes in the media they show this is a good thing, or never show this for people.
So we're quite lucky in Perth because we are the most isolated city. You know, as I said, it's good and bad. But you can go out there and you can do things. But if you were in like London or in New York or in a country with a bigger population or bigger population density, then it's more competitive, or you don't have the chance to get into that course or that study program or whatever type of thing. So, but you still have to be proactive, and you still have to get off your butt and do it. It's not just going to fall on your plate. But I think the opportunity here, I think because we're wrapped in that cotton wool a little bit too, that you know, we don't have, we don't like to have guns and things, you know, at home, so we don't have, you know, that type of violence that you see, you know, in America and South Africa and things like that.
Yeah. Even my culture, Brazil.
Yeah. So, you know, we're lucky like that. But then, you know, there's things that we miss out on because we're not a big city or we have that population. I mean, did you know that Perth, so metropolitan Perth, so you go from Joondalup to Mandurah, so metropolitan city of Perth, that is the same area as LA, but we have a ninth of the population.
Wow. So
you imagine people who live in LA, there's 9 times as many people that live in Perth, but who's going to get the opportunity to, you know, you could open a restaurant. Yes, it's going to be harder to open the restaurant here because we don't have the population and we're all competing for less, but imagine trying to open a restaurant with 9 times more population,
and trying to stand
out
harder.
In the crowd.
That's what I'm saying. Perth in Australia, it's one of the places you have opportunity to grow. So you have people thinking about that. Small cities, better to show up.
And I always say though, you need to leave Perth for a little holiday here and there, or go and live somewhere, because otherwise you become a big fish in a small pond. And you get a bit arrogant.
Mark, how do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully retired.
Well done. And any dreams you wanted to realize yet? Did it come through yet?
Look, splitting the company into the two sort of arms now. So the authentic wine brands will still run like it is doing. Things, but with the online store, there's going to be a lot of merchandise and wine-based themes and giftwares and things and education, but also there's going to be where you can events and trips and things. So it's like you can have an authentic experiences.
That's good.
So it's not just like a wine tour that, you know, you can go and, you know, look on the websites now and things. These are bespoke wine tours. So you could ring me up and say, Mark, I want to go to Italy. Can you organise me a trip to Italy? And I want to go to Tuscany and I want to go, you know, and see this. Or I want to go to Champagne. Can you organise me a trip to Champagne? And with my contacts and my network of wineries and things,
you can organise that.
Yeah, exclusive little trip.
It's like a world trip.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So
that's amazing. I think you can get that easy.
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, that's where we want to go.
Mark, there is a gay slang they call war. I put in a script for you. I don't know if you remember. It is war. It's kind of something like meh, you don't like it, but you think it should be changed. It can be a behavior, it can be a worldwide, it can be here in Australia. What do you think is nowadays is something that is not really good? It could be changed. That, in your opinion?
I think the way I think that the judgmentality. That's not the right word.
Or too much
I
judgmental?
think we prejudge people before we actually get to know them, I guess. And,
yes.
you know, if you think a person's from a certain country or a demographic or a culture, you automatically think that they're this, and you put them in a box. And you know, I lost over 55 kilos, which you know, you've seen the journey. So you know, I used to be a lot bigger, you know, size small. I used to be like 4XL. These are size 28. These used to be size 40. You know, I wore exactly the same style of clothing, but people, would, you know, especially gay dating, would totally blank me off or not want to know me type of thing. And now it's different. Or you go out into a bar and people want to talk to you, or, you know, you're not just sort of pushed into the corner and things. It's sort of because people think, oh, he's fat, you know, he's this, and, you know, he doesn't look after himself, he doesn't, you know, this. And it's not a medical condition that the reason why you're larger and things like that. So it's get to know those people, because those people have got stories and they're beautiful people.
Yes.
Don't just prejudge people, you know. And that's why when people say to me with my own personal parties, oh my God, this room is full of so many different people, and it's like, well, of course, I try to I get to know everybody, and also I invite everybody to the parties, because if you're a friend of mine, I know you're going to be a friend of theirs, because
you never know.
Yeah.
And world is too small. Even and here in Australia, we are a multicultural country, so it's nice to sharing.
Yeah,
that's amazing thing. Well done, Mark. Thank you so much for this interview. It was amazing. Guys, I hope you learn a lot of wine, because it was a lot of, for me, like learning stuff, know how to fridge the proper wine, where to put, decanter every time. Don't buy a zero alcohol wine, that is shitty, you know. And also the QR code for Mark here, so you can hire the Authentic Wine brands and, you know, and see all the clues, many things, subjects of wines. And also, guys, come on, become a membership for Authentic Wine brand. So why not? You know, if you want to be like sponsored at the company for something, contact with Mark, okay? Mark, thank you so much for this. It was a lovely interview with so much learning, and I hope I go to your tour for wines one day, isn't it? Yeah. So, do you want to see something?
No, thank you. Yeah, so it's been really good fun, and I think we probably were missing a glass of wine.
Yeah, you should have a glass. That's the only main thing. You should have a wine.
We have one upstairs. But no, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to tell my story, and hopefully your followers, everybody enjoyed it. And,
absolutely.
So
guys, see you there. See you next time. Bye bye.